In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Chad Alger-Hardt, and he is the Vice President of Marketing at Gather Voices. And it's a video software solution. Today, we're going to be really, learning what Gather Voices is all about, how Chad is thinking about growth for the business, and also a little bit about his journey in the world of marketing. So Chad, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. I look forward to the discussion.
Very cool. Give us a 360 overview. What is Gather Voices all about?
Right. So Gather Voices is a B2B SaaS software, and we enable organizations to collect video from anyone, anywhere, anytime on any device. We're all walking around with, phones and laptops and tablets, and they all have these cameras in them that people have made movies with. So with Gather Voices, you can collect that content with our software from anyone, anywhere, anytime. And then after it's collected, we grab the usage rights and they're uploaded into our system where you can then do some editing to the files by creating frames or editing your captions, burning them in, lower thirds, all that kind of good basic stuff. And then also publish it from our platform as well into any kind of social media asset that you want, or download it or do whatever you want. So we make kind of video, which is typically thought of as like, oh God, it's really important content, which we all know, but it's super hard, cumbersome, and expensive to make happen. We make that very, very easy.
Very, very succinct explanation, very clear to understand. Tell us, who is using that? Like which type of businesses and which people in those roles? Who's using? Is that marketers? Is that brand specialists? Like who's using the software?
Yeah, so right now, Gather Voices is really pretty heavily focused in the association and nonprofit category.
Yeah.
We also do a bunch of work with healthcare organizations, which is kind of adjacent, as well as events, which makes sense since a lot of events are now hybrid or virtual. Well, we make sense for in-person too. But typically, those are the industries that we're focused in right now. Having said that, I think that long term, as we continue to grow, we are a startup. Us expanding to other verticals makes sense. I think the use cases for a software like ours are pretty much endless. But when we think about who are the main clients that we're working with, it really runs the gamut because there are various different use cases people need user-generated video for. So marketing is a big one. So a director of marketing. And that director of marketing might have kind of an overall view of what's happening in membership and events and member engagement and continuing education and advocacy and so on down the line. But our clients can be anywhere from marketing to membership to events to, it does kind of span a little bit of depth there, depending on the specific use cases they're using us for. Does that make sense?
Completely. I mean, just sounds like there's a bunch of personas that get use of the technology and different use cases.
Yeah, we have several different buyer personas.
Makes sense. Let's talk about them. I mean, how do they find Gather Voices? Like, what's the typical journey of somebody getting to know Gather Voices? Or in other words, what are sort of the key client acquisition channels that you guys are leveraging?
Yeah, and so there's kind of like the pre-world coming to an end and post, which the world's still in an interesting place right now. But before kind of COVID hit, our main way of getting and securing leads was going to events. We have a kiosk version of our software. People would engage with it, and that would be a really tactile way for people to experience the software and be like, oh, God, I need that. Excuse me. And then the world came to an end, and so events didn't happen anymore. So we had to quickly go from this direction. We are very, very heavy in a content-driven strategy. So, we've done a major overhaul on our website. When we think about content, we've layered in a ton of information that would really address what are the questions that our typical buyers have about our business, or what are the key questions they're going to have when they're trying to think through, should they be investing in a software like ours to help them. So we call it kind of buyer's journey content, which we have infused greatly, not only into our website, but we've also done a ton in terms of insight sharing and thought leadership with a bunch of different conferences that we are either leading or sharing or sponsoring. We have a very robust blog and social. We're in kind of all the, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We are very strong on all of those. We have a CRM through HubSpot. So we're doing kind of all of the standard digital marketing things in order to get potential buyers to learn a little bit more about us.
Very cool. I mean, I had a quick look prior to the show on the website, and I mean, it's a small detail, but I think there's something very unique that every team member has its own little, video. I think that is, I think nobody ever thinks about that. And I think that's pretty damn cool. Very nice.
No, I mean, we feel like we need to be drinking our own juice, It's our software. We got to leverage it however we can. And, you'll see on our website, we leverage our software for a bunch of the video on our website, and that's all user-generated content, which is really, really important. However, there are other portions of our website where we just needed something a little bit different. I've got an explainer video on there that is not user-generated video. On our homepage, that starter video it's produced, but that's because we're trying to explain, we make videos simple, that part's easy, but what we actually do is a little complex, and so we need help to make that come to life.
Makes complete sense. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, we speak about the website here a little bit, and you're in marketing. Like, maybe how do you think about? I mean, all these aspects. You mentioned the buyer's journey. You mentioned content that is bringing the idea to life. How do you think about, as a marketer, figuring out about why people wouldn't convert in setting up for, let's say, a demo, or example? Like, what is sort of the tools, the methodologies? Do you approach user testing, A/B tests? Like, what is it that you guys are doing in order to learn more about the visitors?
We are a small startup, so we have to be a little scrappy with how we get at some of those. Basically, in order to make any of those decisions, you need insight. And so, I'm an insight-driven marketer, and whether that's through insight, through data, through how I see about web performance, what people are reacting to or not, or what I'm doing from a paid social perspective, where I'm able to see kind of which messaging is resonating or not. My biggest source of intel, though, my biggest source of insight has to do with my collaboration with the sales team and the insights they generate by working with our existing clients, as well as prospective clients as they're having those communications. That's where we get a ton of insight on what are the key hurdles that clients are having as they think about investing in a software like ours. What are the stumbling blocks? What do they really need to better understand in order to sell it up through their leadership to be able to get the support they need? And that's where I get, honestly, my most powerful and most, I'm trying to think of the right word. So I activate mostly on that insight we get from sales, because it's real. And they're the ones kind of on the front lines.
Yeah, I can completely relate. And I think it's something that has been emerging on the podcast as well, getting that, insights that, as you say, real insights that help you to make better decisions.
So we have sales, one more part, sorry. So we have sales, and it's like sales has traditional sales. So, BDRs and SDRs and account executives, and they're trying to make deals happen. But then we also have a CS team, and that CS team owns the relationship with our existing clients. And so it all falls under sales. But it's kind of the combination of those two groups that really give us the insight that drives our content.
That makes a whole lot of sense. I would like to switch gears a little bit and learn a little bit about you as a marketer. I mean, there's so much content out there, right, that you could be consuming and reading and perfecting your strategies upon. How do you decide what to read? Like, what's your go-to places, and maybe how do you filter even that growth market content out there?
Yeah, I mean, there is such a lot of content out there to consume. I think we are very, very heavy in going to conferences. So, the engagement, I like going to the conferences, consuming that content. We have a very strong webinar series too. So I do a ton of networking just by the nature of the marketing tactics that are part of my plan. And so that really is probably the strongest. I will go and I'll Google my face off and read a bunch of different articles, but there's not like one specific place that I go. We do leverage HubSpot. And so I do leverage the marketing blog there quite a bit, and the resources they have available to us as being a customer. But I can't tell you I have like one tried and true, this is my holy grail in terms of one source. I think it's important to consume everywhere. I find LinkedIn as being a really good place to, listening to kind of what everyone else is doing as well.
Fair enough. I have some rapid fire questions for you to slowly wrap up the interview. Ready for those?
Sure.
What's the last book you read?
Oh, it's called They Ask, You Answer. This is a book that we are very much so attuned to here at Gather Voices, but it talks a lot about the buyer's journey and different ways to get that content into your marketing.
Very cool. And for everybody who is watching or listening, I did not prepare chat for this. This is just legit he pulling off his book there right now.
Yeah, no, right there.
Very good. Awesome. What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Well, right now, the organization continues to be really focused on sharing the news about the updates to our product. A lot of without a good product, we don't sell. And we've been focusing a lot on the editing component of our product. So what you can do with the content after it's brought into our system. Mm-hmm. And so we've really elevated that. So in terms of product development, that is something that we're focusing on. And from a marketing perspective, that is an area that I'm trying to talk about more, as well as continuing to talk about kind of ways to measure success of leveraging video. And DE&I is also another really great topic that we talk about as well.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, what's the one thing you would fix for your role?
For my role, I'd make everything cheap.
So I think it ranks in my top 3 answers, I think, on the podcast. I like that. It's very pragmatic and very helpful.
Well, I mean, like, I'm just living in this world where I'm in a startup. It's not that I don't have a budget, but I don't have the kind of budgets that I'm used to with my past roles. And so I got to get scrappy. And so it'd be amazing if I had just this blank check that I could use to buy all the things.
Very cool. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
We are in the midst of a user summit. And so we call it Engage 2021. This is our 2nd annual year. And it's a 5-week-long program. And so it's every Tuesday. And the content for that is quite intricate. We got a bunch of, and people can watch on demand if they ever want to register and sign up, even post being live or, when we're done. But the content for that and kind of juggling all of that and managing through that definitely keeps me up at night.
Mm-hmm. I can understand. For the last question, I want to do a bit of time travel, if you allow. Let's go back to the days of the Powell University. And you're heading out of education, you're off into the world of, marketing and sales and growth, for that matter. What's the one advice you would give yourself?
That's really good. I would say to myself to embrace learning new things and leaning into just trying. So I think in order to be successful in any sort of marketing role, especially in a time like this, we're in a time of great change that's happening very rapidly. And so what worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work today, but may work tomorrow. And so being open to change, trying new things, continuing to iterate, I think that is something that I would want myself to, that was a skill I developed. I would want to have developed that a little bit earlier to make things even better. Although I'm very happy with where I'm at.
Chad, I really appreciate that you took the time with us today to be a guest on PathFunk Presents. I want to give you the last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Gather Voices today, what's the one thing that they should remember?
About Gather Voices, the one thing to remember is that we make gathering, editing, and sharing user-generated video content simple, affordable, and easy.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on PathFunk Presents.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.